Love the game. Super geeked. Moving on here. Arguably one of the biggest lawsuits, I'd say, in recent memory. Flores versus the NFL. Hugh Jackson has jumped on, but what happens is Brian Flores, fired in Miami, says his interview for the Giants that Belichick texted him, congratulations. It wasn't for him, it was Dabble, but Flores hadn't even interviewed yet. Then you come out with the fact that the Broncos didn't take him serious, and John Elway refuted that. The Dolphins refuted it. Hugh Jackson comes out and says that he was paid to lose, which, like, the Browns are like, yes, that's why we went 0-16. Yes, 100%. Yes, that's why. All catapulting. Really what I want to get to here, Greg, is Flores' lawsuit. Does he still have a chance to coach for an NFL team? And as a fan of the NFL, do you see anything happening coming from the league side of things? Because he is suing the NFL, not the team.
He is. This season, I don't think so. And I think he's accepting the fact that he understands that he will probably not get another job for a while. I think he's like putting a risk. He's taking a calculated risk out there for the sake of wanting to make a change. And I credit him for that. But I think this essentially takes him out of the running for every open position right now, because I personally think that he would have been easily a front runner for the Texans or the Saints job, in my opinion. I think he would have.
I am going to say this, though. So just to bring it up, Keaton says 0 chance. And I don't think you're wrong, Keaton. I think Brian Flores would have done everything the same, even if the Texans said, we want you as the coach. But I will add that I think with all the jobs filling up, I feel in the air that there was something in the Texans or Saints that he wasn't going to be the guy, even though I would have loved him for the Texans. He's a culture guy, really strong coach. But I feel, and I could be completely off-put or incorrect here, but I feel like something was alluding to the fact that he wasn't going to get either of those jobs, and that is maybe why all of this not came out. I believe he fully would have done everything the same way, but I think that might be why he's accepting the fact that he kind of isn't going to get those chances so eagerly, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, I personally think that he was holding on to all of that stuff with regards to the Dolphins and the Broncos for a while now, just because like he never thought he would need it, but it would always just be back there just in case. But what happened with the Giants was very messed up, especially
why did Bill Belichick know? Let's start right there.
That's the part I'm curious about. Like, I don't know who would he be communicating with the Bills or the Giants to be able to even have that information at his disposal too. That's the part I don't get.
No, the Bills.
Go.
Go.
But what also makes it really great too is that for sure this was real, because I can't imagine Bill Belichick would not sign a text message BB at the end.
So
I can't imagine.
Here's a bunch of guys in my league we're talking about. Blackballed himself, Natty says. Yeah, no, I mean, it's a real word. A lot of guys in my league were like, man, Bill knew it. Like, he's trying to destroy a team and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, hear me out. Also, though, he's like 75. He's a complete liability.
He doesn't care.
He's a complete liability with a phone, Greg. Like, he's not going to know Bill Dabble, Brian Flores, Bubba Gump, Shrimp. He doesn't know any. He's a liability with a phone. He has cameras in every team's office, 100% Keaton. But he's also not him doing it. There's someone smarter setting up the cameras. Bill is not setting up the cameras.
I mean, let's be clear here too. Like, all of us at some point have sent the wrong text to someone. All of us have like sent a ping or like an instant message
especially
that worked to the
person that you're thinking about, which was probably wow, that sucks for Flores. And then
with the exact same first name. I mean, come on, like, we've all done that. I totally believe Belichick did it by accident.
I've definitely texted Greg Mack trying to text Greg Malik before.
Yes, I can confirm this. Oh yeah, I can confirm this as well. So I totally believe it. But like I said, what makes it more accurate to me is that I can see Bill Belichick ending a text message with BB. Like, I have to. Like, there's no way.
Oh yeah, 100%.
But I want to like make sure that we also touch on this too. Please. Is that I think the most important thing about this lawsuit, in all seriousness, is that we really need to remember what the whole purpose of this lawsuit was from the beginning, because I think there's too much news being put out there about the smaller bit of information that came out because of it, and that's now becoming like the main focal point,
Yeah.
Because like again, we're trying to Brian Flores created this lawsuit because he wanted to essentially shine a light on the fact that hiring practices are not fair in the NFL.
Yes.
And we're all aware of that too. Like the Rooney Rule, like let's be clear here. Like there are a lot of times where coaches are simply interviewed for the sake of filling a role, and 9 times out of 10 it's usually someone that's already on the staff that's probably not going to get the job.
Yeah.
That's how it is. They expanded it, trying to make it a little better. And I was on record last week saying that I thought improvement was being done on this just from the fact that 2 of the 4 GM jobs that were filled by minority candidates. I thought for a fact that was at least showing some sort of progress, but clearly from the coaching aspect, it's not. And I have mixed emotions about that, but that's what it is. But I think the most important thing is that we need to focus on the fact that this lawsuit is about the hiring practices, and it's not fully about the throwing of games, because I think that's the thing that's going to be the talked about thing on every single channel now moving forward, and that should not be the main focus in my opinion.
So I agree, and I had this discussion again with the guys in my Dynasty League, just talk to them every day about this type of stuff. One of them asked, and so I have a friend in this league, and he's a lawyer, and he is a genius individual, and I really like a good friend, like you would love him. But it's really, really cool to have a lawyer that works for a law firm that deals with NFL stuff here and there. He does not touch this case in any way, shape, or form, but he understands this stuff. And so we were like bouncing questions off him yesterday, like asking a ton of stuff. And it got down to what he said, he asked us. He was like, well, why do you guys think like Flores mentioned the tanking stuff? Because he was like, it didn't seem like it didn't feel a part of it. And my answer, whether it be correct or incorrect, was that I think the Dolphins don't consider this regime real in a way. That might be the only reason that he slid it in, is because they're like, all right, whatever. Like, we have Flores for a couple of years. That was the only reason I could think of it, other than just like him trying to bring the league down in some way, which I'm all for. Like, I think the NFL is a complete POS sham.
Well, here's the thing too. Like, it's very much in the same boat as the David Culley thing too, because when we knew that David Culley was hired from the get-go, and we didn't expect anything from him, and he overachieved for in my book, in all seriousness.
Agreed.
But I wonder if in his mind the tanking thing was maybe a way to be able to try to get more people involved with it.
Yeah, true.
In actuality, but again, it still undercuts the whole purpose of this. And by the way, this is a class action lawsuit. They're trying to get more people involved with it, which I hope they do. But I think it still undercuts kind of the whole importance of this lawsuit is the NFL does not take hiring practices seriously with regards to diversity hires. Now, and I think people need to also understand this too. This is not the actual like NFL league offices and stuff that are doing kind of the negative part on here. Like, there has been like numerous records being put out on point that Roger Goodell and Troy Vincent and all of that. Like, if you look at the NFL office, if you pull up the directory on NFL.com, it is very diverse. They take that stuff seriously. This is more about the actual teams that try to like cut it under the wayside. And by the way, I'm just looking to point that out too. Of those 3 teams that they're being called out for all this stuff, the Dolphins, I'm not surprised at all, got thrown into this just because when was the last?
I have a picture of their owner on here, and he looks like a weirdo.
Yeah, like when you think about the Dolphins, I don't think of stability in any way. So like
I think of Dan Marino and sick colors.
Yeah, the Broncos.
I think of John Elway's stupid mouth. Teeth.
I could kind of see it. I could also see stuff flying under the radar there because of the whole ownership stuff that's been going on with them for a while now. Like, I could definitely see that being an issue, maybe.
Do you think I could buy them?
But the Giants really surprised me that this came out, because that's like, granted, like, I understand that they've been like in terms of like on-field success, they haven't done well over the last few years, but that's still like, that's like a family, like chartered, like headline, like organization, man.
Agreed.
Like that surprised me.
But here's the thing. The difference between the other 2 teams and the Giants, in my opinion, is that the Giants weren't the Broncos feel like they didn't take it that serious.
Okay.
First off, I want to read these comments really quick because Austin's writing paragraphs. Culley was brought in to make Watson happy, but it was never going to make him happy because he didn't want him as the coach. When they basically stopped trying to make Watson the focal point, there was no point in keeping Culley around, which is sad because he did well with the talent he had. Austin, I will say the one thing, I think it was Ari Meroff, My Sport Update on Twitter, who's like my favorite link. He mentioned that a lot of GMs said that it was like a dumb contract from the team in Culley because it was a 2-year deal, which as a GM as a coach, you're never going to prove them enough to get your worth. So It was an interesting thing, but I agree with you, Austin. Then Keaton writes in, Deke, I'll pitch in. We can buy them. Let's buy them. Greg, I think personally the New York Giants knew they wanted Dabble. They saw what he did with his previous team, and they're like, that's the guy that can make Daniel Jones a real NFL quarterback because they've already hitched themselves, and they really do think it's Daniel Jones. Unfortunately, they let it leak somehow. They're like, dude, we did Dabble. He's the guy. But we do have to fulfill the Rooney role.
But they could have very easily done that by interviewing Patrick Graham.
Who's Patrick?
Their defensive coordinator.
You can't. Internal doesn't count for the Rooney Rule.
Oh, it doesn't. That's right. That's the update. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's right. That is the update.
So
that they just did
internal
last year.
does not matter. You have to have external. So they're like, look, we know Dabble's our guy. Brian Flores is a great coach. Let's bring him in, interview him, see if we're missing something. But we know Dabble's the guy. Natty writes in. I always try to read Natty's comments. I love the way his brain thinks. Maybe I'm a pessimist, but I doubt nothing will happen. Doubt nothing. Okay. They will settle outside of court, sadly. Everyone has a number. Nobody tells 32-year-old white billionaires to do anything. They will find a number, and this will be swept under the rug just like Kaepernick. I will say that, unfortunately, it was not the change that the world needed, but the Kaepernick situation does still have impacts. You see guys like not Haslam, Bam Adebayo on the Miami Heat continue to say Black Lives Matter at the end of every press conference, so nothing might happen. But and you can speak to my comment or Natty's, Greg. I'll let you go because I spoke a ton there.
I was going to say that I think in the long run, what Kaepernick did was obviously powerful, and I would say that his words and his message are still being viewed at today.
Sorry to cut you off. The Giants just released a timeline of the Brian Flores stuff.
Ooh, okay.
Insist Bill Belichick was offering his opinion and was not told of a decision. Interesting. So keep going. I just wanted to let you know that.
So I was going to say, so Belichick needs to be the one asked on this if he actually knew or not, 'cause that's going to be the big telling point.
While I'm cutting you off, Micah Parsons beat Tyreek Hill, Nick Chubb, and Trayvon Diggs in a fastest man race.
What? I'm sorry, what?
Ari tweeted it, and Micah Parsons is the second scariest person in the NFL after Aaron Donald. I don't go watch the video. All right, you go. Sorry, I've talked so much, Greg. I'm doing this.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Natty, I don't necessarily disagree because I do think that with these lawsuits, there's settlements or odds are that's going to happen, but I don't know, man. I watched Flores 2 times yesterday when he was on Get Up, the show I love, and he was adamant that he felt disrespected. He believes what he believes in. He's taking the risk of knowing that he's probably never going to coach again. And for all intents and purposes too, Brian Flores is a great coach. Brian Flores, when we heard that he got fired, I was surprised. And we took it as oh, they wanted someone that would develop Tua better and all that stuff. But in all seriousness, we truly believe that Brian Flores is a very good head coach. He's probably the best Bill Belichick disciple we've seen do well in the NFL so far, which is saying something.
I think he's the best head coach that doesn't have a team that is willing to coach.
No, Sean Payton. Well, then again, he's not willing to coach. But yeah, you're right. Okay, I'll take that back. But yeah, no, Brian Flores, I think would be a great head coach, great head coach right now in the NFL. It's just unfortunate that he's taking this risk.
Agreed. Let's move on, Greg. It is 15 minutes to our commercial break. Let's cover for the next 15 minutes. Chip writes in, Cap wasn't the first to kneel, but it was handled differently. Agreed with that. That's the biggest thing, and the whole story about why he knelt versus sitting on the bench previously.
Which there was a big disconnect in that too, which made it worse.
Oh yeah, because people
in
are
all
stupid.
seriousness.
Uh,
Right.
Agreed with you, Dad. He wasn't the first to kneel. That happens all the time, but it was handled much differently due to the climate of the world. The ranking says the offering to lose game bothers me a lot, compromising the integrity of the game in order to try to get Joe Burrow in the draft. If it is found to be true, the 100K per loss in the game that Ross needs to go. Here's the thing, Austin. To assume that doesn't already happen in sports is to assume a lot of humanity.
Right.
I'm sorry if
And
I
that's
just
the
told
thing.
you that Santa wasn't real, buddy, but to assume that there's an integrity of the game that matters to these old white billionaires is just a lot.
And here's the problem too. Like we can say all we want about like Tank for 2-0 was like the thing when this happened, and then Joe Burrow
I
like
think it
lit
was
it
the
up.
thing the year before.
It was that. Yeah. So there was like definitely some things with it. Like we joke about that in all seriousness, but we've never ever believed that there's actually never been proof that a team was actually going out of their way to try to tank. And then this is what it is, and it turns out to be like monetizing it. Like that's the big
I
thing.
will say, Greg, I I don't know how to word this. Hugh Jackson is not an 0-16 NFL head coach.
No, I've been on record real quick too that
Yeah,
I thought
go.
he should have been the Raiders coach when he went 8-8 with them. I'm on record
He's a
saying that.
great coordinator. He was a good fill-in interim head coach. Those 2 seasons with the Browns, we get, what is it, 1-32, 1-31, or whatever it is, something like that.
1-31, yeah.
I think he's a good coach. I think they had the worst players in the history of the NFL. And that 0-16 team, Greg, not even the Lions team is that bad. I think that Browns team that didn't win a game is the only team in NFL history I can think of that would lose to an Alabama team. And it's just because they didn't draft well and didn't have talent. I will say, though, for him to come out and say that the team wanted them to lose is interesting because there was just no way they were going to win games while they missed that many draft picks. That's where I'm at with it. We have a ton of comments coming in real quick. Vo writes in, Austin's parents pay me $50 to lose the great debate, so Austin looks smart. Chip writes in, LOL, I knew it. King Vo, King Moorhead, Keaton says, not surprising. So
Vo ain't no king. Let's be real about that.
Let's move along, Greg. 2 old guys retired. Let's start with old guy number 1, Ben Roethlisberger. Officially comes out and retires, Greg. The quarterback that we've known for our entire manhood is gone forever.
Happy trails to you.
Everyone at work keeps saying, how you doing?
Again.
And I say, honestly, it's like shooting
Happy
a 3-legged dog with one eye.
You
we had some great memories.
Till we meet
but, buddy,
again.
it's time to die. I don't know. I cried. I'm gonna miss him. I think he is he's the greatest Steeler I've ever seen. I will say that out loud. I love Polamalu, love Hines Ward. Got to see them, but wasn't really into football back then. Ben is the epitome of Pittsburgh Steeler football, and it's a shame, but a very well-deserved retirement.
We kind of touched on this previously when it kind of seemed like it was going to be his last hurrah beforehand and stuff. It is unfortunate because, yes, I got into football around the time that Ben was drafted. I still remember. I started watching football in 2001. That was like the very end of the Cordell Stewart era. And then the next year was Maddox. The following year was the last time I remember the Steelers having a losing season, which was 6-10.
I did not care about football that much until my freshman year at Slipper Rock when we had that one fantasy football league.
Yeah, and then 2004 when they drafted Ben. I remember watching the draft, and I missed him actually get drafted because I had to go to a Little League game that time, and then I caught it at the very end. I remember the 15-1 year. I remember that amazing Super Bowl run, which I did not expect them to do well because they lost. They were not doing well. I think they were 7-5 at one point, and then they went on that amazing run. Ben is the Ben is the architect of so many great memories I have as a Steelers fan, because that is my sweet spot as a Steelers fan.
Yep.
That's what I know as a Steelers fan. So it's saying a lot to kind of realize that I'm now not going to have him there anymore. It's going to be weird because it's a constant that I'm used to.
Every year.
And I'm thankful for everything that he gave me. I saw 2 Super Bowl wins because of him. So
3 Super Bowl appearances, which a lot of people don't get to go to. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm grateful for everything you orchestrated. I'm grateful for all the amazing moments that I had as a Steelers fan. I remember Christmas Day where he beats the Ravens in that incredible game-winning drive where Antonio Brown
Immaculate extension.
The immaculate extension. Like that's something I'm never gonna forget. So
Dre writes in, Dre has entered the chat. Ben forever, Carson Strong next. I don't know. I hate him, Greg.
What was I was reading the Notebook this morning on Steelers Depot, and it said something about how
that's crazy. I was watching the Notebook this morning.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah.
So he was. I believe the one line about Carson Strong was that he was in the pocket and was stable and static.
I watched a lot of Is Carson Strong Good videos on YouTube today.
Mm-hmm.
My first gut before anything happens analysis. He could be decent in the perfect situation.
What is considered the perfect situation is the problem.
The Chiefs. A franchise that can sustain and build upon him. We'll talk about that at the second half of the second part of the show. Back to Ben, though. Yeah. I agree. He's the architect of all of the moments that matter to me and that make me super happy.
Yeah. It's going to be weird because we are essentially entering like unknown territory.
Yeah, I don't know. This is the first time I've never been sure who's going to take the ball under center.
I've never, like I said, 2003 was the last time I ever had to deal with anything like this, and I was 9. So that's saying something.
There's one thing about Pittsburgh Steelers football, which is, we wake up and we have this issue, we have that issue, we have this issue, we need to draft for this, we need to think of this. This is going to be the first season ever from my fandom that quarterback is on that list. Granted, the past couple of years I've wanted the heir apparent.
Yeah.
Blah, 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 this, that. Like, I've been very vocal about the future. But here's the one thing I will say. A lot of people say Ben should have retired 2 years ago. Big Ben has played Pro Bowl level style the past. You know what I mean? Like, he's been a very good quarterback even in his later days, and that's impressive, and I'll miss him.
Yeah. It is unfortunate because, like, 2 years ago, that was when we weren't able to have him that much because that was when he was injured. And then last year, I mean, yes, he did all he could, guys. And then this year, I mean, he just looked disheveled. But here's the thing, though. Ben deserved – say what you want about him. I think he deserved that last hurrah,
Agreed.
There's just certain athletes that, that you got to, let them go out on their sword.
You have to. And that's what they'll do. Another old man retired, Greg, and then we're going to hit a commercial break. He played
an older man.
The oldest man, if you will.
Yes, yes.
We should probably have a separate conversation about these two that lets us talk a little bit longer so we don't keep the rain. But Tom Brady, every memory of good football that I have outside of Marshawn Lynch is because of Ben Roethlisberger. Every bad memory of football I think I have outside of that Jacksonville Jaguars playoff game is because of Tom Brady.
I hate the fact, too, that we didn't start to love Tom Brady until he left New England, Could you imagine if he actually showed all this personality?
He would not be who he is. He would not.
I know.
He would not be who he is today if he did that. He had to do everything perfectly.
It's crazy to think that because – Gronk was able to be the same type of person wherever he went, and we loved him for it. Even though when he was laughing at
I'm special.
Yeah.
Okay, Gronk. That's the worst commercial. I hate Gronk right now.
I know. When he was laughing at Sean Davis in the end zone, I was like, damn, that hurts, but I can't hate him. He's good. But at the same time, Brady going to Tampa Bay, it was kind of like that moment too, where I thought to myself, Brady's already acting like he's retired.
Yes.
It's like when everyone like retires and they go to Florida and stuff, and they just kind of like they're happy and all that.
They
just
let
cut
loose a little bit,
and stuff
yeah.
like that. They let loose. Brady is like the equivalent of that. He let loose in the grandest of ways, and we love him for it. Like his Twitter profile picture is literally of him with glowing red eyes. For God's sake, like I never expected that.
I know for a fact he does not operate his own social channels. That's the one thing I will say.
But it's still fun.
It's still fun
so
that he
fun.
allows it. Natty says, Ben to Santonio Holmes is the second full football game I watched. Before that, I only watched Colts versus Bears when Tony Dungy won. Love Tony Dungy.
Hey, nothing wrong with that. That was Snowmageddon, too.
Yes,
I remember that.
Okay, so here's my next question. Is Tom Brady the least athletic GOAT of all time? In sports history, obviously, there's like the fat GOAT. That doesn't count.
Yes, because every time I think of him running the 40 at the combine.
I think of him just running, even in the NFL.
Him running at the combine is like him in dad shoes with baggy shorts and a big ass t-shirt. It's just weird.
Yep.
It's very weird. Yeah, I can't imagine that. It's so odd. Yeah, he's the most unathletic GOAT ever. But I will say, the TB12 method, it's still weird to me in every single way. It's weird, but hey, something apparently he found out made it work. I didn't realize strawberries were that bad for you until Tom Brady pointed it out.
Tom Brady said, Ben did it his way and drank beer and ate cake, and cake is made different ways. Natty writes in, no, Tiger Woods. Bro, Tiger Woods can bench a car, brother. Tiger Woods is, in his prime, was ripped. He says it's golf for crying out loud. No, Natty. Tiger Woods was an athlete. Golfers might not be athletes. Tiger Woods was an athlete, bro.
Tiger Woods essentially changed how golfers prepare themselves now. Like if you
There's
look
no
at
Bryson
all of
DeChambeau without Tiger.
No, if you look at it to a lesser degree, like Brooks Koepka, Tony Finau, Dustin Johnson, Jordan Spieth, all of those guys have incredible workout regimens to be able to get themselves into shape for tournaments and stuff. Like Tiger's like the epitome of that.
He's like the first golfer to actually work out.
Yes, that's a great way to put it.
Before that, the GOATs were John Daly and Arnold Palmer. A working man and an alcoholic. I love it.
And we love them
John
for
Daly. Do not get me wrong. John Daly is a good
No. Yeah, but there's like, and here's like the funny thing too, like we point this out. Have you ever watched any of those like Super Bowl highlight shows from where they look at the 60s and stuff? And it's like looking at the Packers and the Chiefs and all that. Like think about this in perspective. If you see any of those guys like with their helmets off and stuff and how like the receding hairlines and like the horrible facial hair and stuff like that they have. These dudes are the same age that we were.
Yes.
And it's like aging gracefully apparently was not a thing in the 60s. So
Natty writes in, according to Blue Mountain State, golf isn't a sport. Dre writes in probably the comment of the year. Natty clearly never played 72 holes in 4 days. That's the other thing, Natty. Granted, you're not carrying your own clubs. The caddies, great athletes, but walking 72 holes in 4 days and just, dude, I cart 18 holes and I'm tired.
Mm-hmm. That does a lot to you. We can attest to that.
I will stand by that Tom Brady is the least athletic GOAT of all time.
I honestly can't think of many others in my mind because every single other sport like has to require you to be like at the peak of physical
Here's a question.
prowess. Go ahead.
Are horse jockeys the athlete or is the horse the athlete?
Horse is the athlete.
Wait, who's Phil Taylor?
Phil Taylor? Why does the name sound familiar?
I don't know. Keaton said Phil Taylor. Oh, Keaton darts doesn't count. Get out of here.
Oh.
Shut up, Keaton. I hate you.
That's like saying Chris Moneymaker is also counting in that. No, come on.
Staring
Which, by
contest.
the way, real name for a poker player. Chris Moneymaker is his actual real last name.
Pete Weber. Guys, you know what I mean. Actual GOATs. Pete Weber's not even the best bowler ever. He's just a god. He's not a GOAT. It's Jason Belmonte. We are going to take a quick commercial break, guys. We'll be back to talk about the Major League Baseball CBA because my assumption is, Greg, you will want to go for a half hour, and that'll get us to the draft. So